Thank you for tuning in to Andronetalks Radio, gathering as one in our sovereign truth from a galactic perspective, exploring our world with new ideas, knowledge, and a promise of a better future. Galactic discussions for galactic-minded people. Andronetalks.
All right, so welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We have very interesting guests that I have spoken to recently who has a lot of information to share with the public, especially some unique information from his personal experience. And his name is Mike, and I just want to welcome you to being here with us today, Mike.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, Jessica. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, fantastic. And I just wanted to get into a little bit of your background. And so you were in the Navy, and so you've had so many different experiences that we're going to cover. So maybe you can explain your background and talk about your what role that you had in the Navy and some of the experiences that you had, especially your where you trained or where you worked at.
Okay. Well, to start out with, I was in naval aviation back in 1978. I went in and stayed in for 4 years. But I was stationed at China Lake, California, at the Naval Weapons Test Center as a aviation electrician's mate, second class. We worked on a lot of different kind of aircraft, experimental. It was I had a top secret clearance. We spent some time in at Nellis Air Force Base, and I didn't see a whole lot of what went on at China Lake, but through my years, after I got out of the Navy, I worked at the Catawba Nuclear Station in right outside of Rock Hill, South Carolina, and I was a instrument and electrical technician. And so I have a pretty good background when it comes to knowing about radiation and the operation of a nuclear plant. But while I was doing that, I got to go to a radiation users group in Nevada, and we took a tour of Yucca Mountain. And we went down through the tunnels there, and there was a lot of places they wouldn't let us go. But we drove through Area 51. It was pretty interesting. This place is not far from S4, and it's a neat place to visit if you ever get a chance to.
Yeah.
I guess that's about it. I'm retired now. And I was able to retire at 55. And, I guess in 2016 in the fall, hunting season, is when my Bigfoot experiences started occurring.
Right. So what's interesting is, well, let's step back a little bit before we get into that and talk about some of your military training, because clearly you had clearances, you were going into different locations. They obviously thought you were useful and had had many abilities and talents to be able to carry out whatever needed to be carried out. And in the process, it's unique. Not everybody goes to Area 51. And so, but you did say that to your recall that you don't have any memory of extraterrestrials or seeing any type of UFOs. Is that correct?
Well, through my lifetime, when I was a kid, about 9 years old, I saw a cigar-shaped UFO.
Vehicle? Yeah.
Hovering above our house. And by the time I got somebody's attention, it was gone. I had to run in the house, get my dad, and bring him out, and he couldn't see it, and I couldn't see it anymore. That was the first time I saw a UFO. I had a past life regression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That with James Rink. And what came out there was I was at Nellis Air Force Base running outside the gates with a friend of mine, and I couldn't go any further. And it's just a long road. You go up and then you turn around and go back. While I was there, a UFO came down and got my friend. And this is stuff that I had no idea went on until he asked me. But while I was there, a UFO came over and took me up. And we haven't talked about this. I forgot about it, really.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they took me up, and I had mentioned that it was the tall whites, and they had gotten me so that the entities that got my friend wouldn't take me. So they, when they were gone, they had already put my friend back down. They lowered me back down, and my friend came, and he didn't know that he had gotten taken. He had no memory. I had no memory of what was going on. And we ran back. But that came out in my hypnosis regression that happened there at Nellis Air Force Base when we were there. So,
do you remember what they looked like?
Nordic.
Did they look? Yeah. Did they look humanoid or? Yeah.
They were humanoid, real tall and with white hair. That's about all I remember right now from it. But I asked them who they were, and they said they were, that I would know them as tall whites.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all they said. They didn't harm me. They just, asked me not to make any sudden moves, and I'll be all right. That they were saving me, not hurting me. So I was appreciative of that, I guess, but I didn't know why at the time. And that's pretty much it.
Do you remember how many there were there and how tall they were? Approximately.
I guess there were about, to guess, they were about 8 to 9 feet tall. I couldn't really tell. They had me in one place, and it was like I couldn't go anywhere anyway. But they I, they didn't spend a lot of time talking to me. They just had me there, and that's all one of them had said. I don't even know their names. They didn't tell me any names. We didn't talk much. But
And did they telepathically communicate with you as well, in addition to like verbally speaking to you?
at that time, I don't think so. I couldn't hear anything in my head or think I was talking telepathically. So I guess that answers no.
So it's possible then that when you went through Area 51 that you may have had encounters, but consciously you're not aware of it, but subconsciously there could be some existing experiences that you had. And if it happened over Nellis Air Force Base, then it's possible that it happened in other locations as well.
Yeah, definitely. Which was one of the reasons I got in touch with you. I know that when I was at Nellis Air Force Base, they had an SR-71 there, and that was interesting. I couldn't get real close to it. They wouldn't let us. There were some British Buccaneers bomber type craft there, and this was red flag. Our whole squadron, which was VX5, moved to Nellis Air Force Base for about a month or a month and a half while red flag was going on, and that's what put us there. I didn't see any other UFOs while I was there, but I'm sure there were. There was none on the tarmac or none in any of the hangars that I was allowed in. Of course, I was a Navy sailor and I was an Air Force Base. They wouldn't let me do all the work.
Well, of course, yeah, sure. They have that little rivalry thing that they do,
Yeah.
and also they have their secrecy between the different divisions. You said you spent some time in Channel Lake, and I think there was some kind of incident that happened there as well. I think was something with the DUMS that happened. Was it Channel Lake?
I mean, I was at Channel Lake for 3 years.
Or is it's a base in California where there was some kind of the DUMS were being hit? You had said something to me earlier about that.
Well, their DUMS. There's a big dome underneath Channel Lake,
Right.
base, which is where all the from what I heard on the news, there was something like 35,000 kids and women that they rescued, our military rescued from the domes underneath. Channel Lake had an earthquake here not too long ago.
Yeah.
It tore the base up, and the commissary and all that. I had been in before. My wife and I lived on base.
Yep.
Base housing, and I guess everybody did at the time. There was no place to go. The little town of Ridgecrest was too small and had no hotels or anything at that time. So everybody that came out there stayed on base, either in a barracks or in housing. But the earthquake hit, but I was thinking, well, we had some earthquakes from the San Andreas Fault we could feel, but we never had any earthquakes that were really big, and never was anything like that. You could almost not determine between a bomb dropping and an earthquake coming from the San Andreas Fault. But
Wow.
My impression when I heard about that was that they were blowing up the domes, and it was just not real deep, and it tore up a lot of the base when they blew it up. That's my impression. Because my wife and I both, we've experienced these tremors and earthquakes all the time, being in California there. So that's what I think I was talking about.
Okay.
That dome, when they blew it up, actually was what they classified it as an earthquake.
That's an earthquake. Yeah.
It was
Yeah, well, we know that they have to classify certain things just to keep the public at bay and to not panic or get nervous about some other types of activity. And they don't usually talk about, whether children get rescued out of these dumps.
No, they don't. I forget where I heard it at. It may have been from one of the people that James talked to on his show about one of the shows that he goes to, the Super Soldier Talk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He goes to a lot of shows and talks to a lot of different people, and I think that's where I picked it up at, because I don't believe it was on the news anywhere.
No, nothing like that would be on the news. Yeah. And I don't have a full validation on that myself, but I mean, it is anything like that's possible, and we know that there's been a trafficking and activity, and they have to go somewhere with the amount that they've had. But we don't have any proof or evidence of any of this other than someone, saying that they were a witness or had certain knowledge on it. So let's move on and talk a little bit more about some of your background. So you were in the military for approximately how many years?
4 years.
And then from there, you started working. You started getting hired by places that had some like nuclear facilities, or what was some of the other experiences that you went into?
Yeah, I got a job as an instrument and electrical technician at the Catawba Nuclear Station, and I spent 33 years there working on the plant. Actually, my specialty there was radiation monitoring, but the crew I was on was the reactor protection crew. So if any instrumentation had to deal with the reactor, the level, pressures and flows, temperatures, I worked on all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for many years until I moved up to supervisor after I was there 20 years. I wish I'd have stayed as a technician. But that being said, I retired in 2015.
Mm-hmm. And you
to,
had health issues.
Yeah, I went out because of my health issues. I went ahead and retired.
Yeah, and we had a discussion because I was seeing cobalt around you, and you said that's when you told me that you worked in this area around some of these nuclear facilities.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more? Anything that you had unusual experiences at all at some of these nuclear facilities?
No, there wasn't a whole lot of. Well, it was when I was in, working for or at the Catawba Nuclear Station is when I went to Yucca Mountain. Went to Las Vegas and went to Yucca Mountain and as a tour. And that was really strange. I remember walking into the big tunnel. Well, Yucca Mountain is a
Let's
place.
take a look at that.
I'm sorry.
We'll take a look at that. So it's Yucca Mountain. And it's a
nuclear fuel
waste
or useful fuel repository. It's what it was supposed to be.
Okay, so here it is.
Yeah.
I'll have that opened up.
And
so let's see if we can get some pictures.
The main tunnel right there goes 5 miles through the mountain. And these people with these orange hats, those are visitors touring the facility. All the nuclear plants, the companies had to pay money to the government for this, and they were required through the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and they had been building on that thing for years. That pipe you see coming out of that entrance is an air duct, or it's kind of like a mine would be. You have to have air to breathe in some areas, and also at the Pinellas Range, they used to see mushroom clouds from Las Vegas from them blowing up atomic bombs back in the day. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we had to wear dosimetry to detect any radiation to go through there. All that area is ground zero for.
Inside is ground zero.
Well, all of it, the ground
All
outside
on the outside too. So these people are all exposed.
Yeah, every one of us that did those tours were being exposed to radiation.
What is this right here? This fencing right here, this what is that?
That's conveyor for them. They have these machines. I think they call them muckers. They're round things that make the tunnels. And
right. Yeah. Like boring, to bore into it, right?
Right. And
yeah.
They may have a picture somewhere there of it, but all the muck that comes out of the hole, yeah, that's it.
This is the area. There's Yucca Lake. There's the Nevada testing site, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
There's Nellis Air Force Base. It's all right here.
Well, this is the range right there. The actual base is up north. You can see the
right in here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but it's there. It's more up north.
Yep. There's a National Wild Horse Management Area. Was it near that at all? There's Cactus Flat and the Tonopah Test Range. Yeah.
It's up there. I just don't know exactly where it's at. But you see how that kind of connects to the
Area 51,
Death Valley.
Yeah. Area 51 is Death Valley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yucca Mountain, Indian Springs Air Force Auxiliary Field. There's Nellis there, and then there's Nellis up here.
Yeah, and China Lake is over to the left. it's kind of connected to Death Valley because we went there and it didn't take us very
Yep.
long at all to get to it.
Over here, this is Death Valley. Yep.
Yep. The
Interesting area. So if you look at it pulled out, you can see it is the southernmost part of Nevada, and then it kind of bleeds over into California and right next to New Mexico, but not in it, that whole range.
Yeah, it's a huge place. You add China Lake land to Nonellus test range, and you have a lot of area out there that you can bomb on.
Yeah, so anyone, even like just people driving out here, is a high radiation area, would you say?
Yeah, but people really can't drive through there. I think all the roads that you can use go around.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you can just go there. You have
So when
to,
these people go to like Area 51, they're somehow coming in what, maybe this road
yeah, they probably
get
are.
close to it. They're not going through this area because that's blocked off, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yucca Lake area.
Oh yeah, you can't get there.
And so then they're on the outskirts of it. They can't actually go inside.
Right.
And that's the bombing range right here. It looks like, is that where they did all the bombing? Is that the Manhattan Project area?
I'm not sure, but there's Rachel. That's famous for people that drive down there and want to look at Area 51. You can't really get to it. They won't let you on. But I think they actually stop.
Like tours. They did some kind of tours from there.
Yeah, people that want to go to Area 51 and like they talked about wanting to, all these people getting together and storming Area 51, they had to go to Rachel and go from there to Area 51. They never would make it.
Right.
Tracker.
And if they did, they got arrested if they tried to break in.
Yeah,
you get arrested. Yeah.
It's a neat concept, but they wasting their time.
I knew some people from Pahrump. Actually, when I was at Wolf Spirit Radio, before JP was Dave Corso, and I worked with him there, and he lived in that area, and he had some health issues, which is probably connected to some of the stuff that they've been doing around that area.
The nuclear bomb blast.
Yeah, he had passed. He passed over. It's interesting. I was communicating with him after he died, and he had a lot to say still. But I was a strong advocate for disclosure, so I really always will recognize him. But we're going to get back into this tunnel here, and you could see how this was done. So you said this is all had radiation, and this is that pipe was a ventilation pipe.
Right.
That's coming in.
And the conveyor where they pulled out all the dirt. It's funny. They put it along the side of the road
right here.
Yeah, you couldn't even tell that they were digging anything. And when I walked in there, I said, "This is not going to be a nuclear waste facility. It was going to be a UFO base." I mean, I just knew it. And I was telling everybody, and they were agreeing with me. There's passages that go off to the left and right, and that just go on and on. And the nuclear facility was supposed to be below this level, but the train, there's a train that runs from one end to the other, and people would jump on it, and as it was moving, the workers, and they followed that train. And it's they told us that it went for 5 miles through the mountain, and they never mentioned that it going down below. But we know, you can see pictures or signs of, saying, this level 1, level 2, and it just kept going. And we're going to put that there. And I think they stopped it because the water from this area ended up in the Death Valley water
Oh, jeez.
level thing.
So contaminated water went into Death Valley?
Right. They traced it to there. They took ties and tested, and for the cracks and the fissures and all that, and the water ended up in that basin at Death Valley. And even though there's only like maybe 14 people that lived there, still 14 people that was drinking contaminated water.
Oh my goodness.
So I think they stopped that program.
Yeah, or at least they blocked it somehow, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or they just stopped warning people. I mean, a lot of things kind of dropped off because of the pandemic, and everyone's focus was on just survival at this point. So the things that would have typically gotten taken care of or regulated kind of got glossed over quite a bit.
I think the state of Nevada said something like they wouldn't allow them to use or take the nuclear fuel across its state. You had to put it on a train and bring it, and
yeah,
they were not going to allow it to go through their state. So, and it was going to have to go through the bombing range and all that other to get there, and Nevada said no, so they shut it down.
I just want to point out something here. I don't know if you can see this, but right here, it almost looks like there's some kind of smoke or energy or something, maybe even an apparition.
Yeah.
Because it goes right over the tracks and it doesn't look like dirt.
Yeah, I don't know. I see it.
You see it?
I do.
That's pretty wild. I don't know if they noticed it when they were putting it together, but it almost even looks like there's some eyes right there in the nose.
Yeah. It's unusual, huh?
That's just on Wikipedia. That's a picture. So this is what it looks like outside.
Yeah. That chain you see, that
right here, the forefront.
Yeah, that's to keep people. You can. They bring you on a bus up to the top of the mountain, and they've got a chain around it where they don't want you to get away. They want you to stay away so you don't fall off. But this picture was looking towards California, not towards Area 51. They wouldn't allow us to take pictures in certain areas because you can see a long way from up there, as you can see.
Yeah, and maybe you'd spot a little individual walking around.
Yeah.
Because I've heard of that happening, of people taking pictures or being around there or close enough to there and someone's walking around that is not human looking. Here's another map showing everything. It looks like this is the Caliente Corridor. Is that a highway? Or?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't tell by that map. But.
Yeah, well, maybe that will explain, because we went into looking at the pictures. I don't know what this is either. Let's see, we'll take a look at this. This is the tunnel boring machine, the machine that actually makes the hole.
Yeah, that there where you have your cursor is the business end. That's the one that bores the hole. It's got all the things that eat up the rocks and the dirt, and it shoots it out the end, the other end.
We were looking at the under Las Vegas. I guess Elon Musk has a company called Boring as well, and it was a whole project that's underground. So here's information from the Yucca Mountain, the nuclear waste repository, and this was the test site where there were 904 atomic bombs between 1945 and 1992. About $9 billion has been spent on the project. Total system life cycle cost is estimated $90 billion, and 93% is funded from consumers of nuclear-powered electricity. 27% is funded from the taxpayers. There is 2,500 metric tons of highly radioactive waste of spent fuel from the production of nuclear weapons in temporary storage.
Now, the temporary storage that they're talking about is that each nuclear plant has to store their own used fuel. So they're storing those at the nuclear sites. They built different systems, but they put them in casks and set them in a field near the plant, and they monitor it for temperature and make sure they're all safe. There's security around it. There's mechanisms to ship these used fuel to those casks, and they store it that way. That's how I know that Yucca Mountain was shut down. I'm not sure what year it was. Sorry.
Okay, so $9 billion was spent on concrete tunnels in chambers designed to keep waste safe for at least 1 million years.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Do you think it's safe from your assessment?
I think it's safe, but if nuclear fuel was to leak and it got down into that basin, the water basin behind or underneath Death Valley, it wouldn't affect a lot of people, but Mother Earth probably wouldn't like it in it at all.
And it has
that goes,
Yeah, and liquid has a way of moving and merging with, water. Any type of liquid seems to flow in a way and somehow gathers where it all collects, whether it's rivers, lakes, oceans, Yeah. So somehow or another, it seems to, end up in places that you wouldn't think that it would be likely to go.
Right. Well, near Death Valley is a place called Cyril's Lake, if I pronounced that correctly. And they have a facility that pulls uranium out of the ground and other kind of metals and things. I forget how many elements that they actually pull out and refine there, but it's kind of a neat facility. It's like a mine, and it's got a bunch of different mines all in that one area, and they take all that stuff and separate it and sell it for pharmaceuticals and use it for whatever. But it's not far from there either. There's, as soon as you go past the facility, you know, you get into Death Valley, and you know, so it's a long, drawn out road that you ride. But you gotta go.
The road is on top of there.
What's that?
Is that the road on top of there?
I'm not sure.
Or is this the area where they bore through?
I don't know. It looks like that. Yeah, that range right there.
Mm-hmm.
There may be a road up there, you know, for the buses and stuff.
Yeah.
Than where that that overlook was at, on top of.
Right.
Yep.
It almost looks like you'd have to get there somehow, because this doesn't look like it's any type of drivable terrain.
Yeah, that's probably an early picture.
Oh, okay.
It started, you know.
So this is the interior of that structure right there. That's the interior, and shows this depth.
Yeah.
And there's a north portal, north construction portal, and the south portal.
So where you saw that mucker, that machine, and those people
Yeah.
up front, that's
Mhm.
that's like the north portal, and the other end 5 miles away is like the southern portal. That's the one they don't want us to they didn't
Right.
want us to go to. It's kind of interesting, you know, to see. Not a lot to see, but you know, if you use your imagination and get an idea of what they're trying to do, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I like you said, there is a lot to see, and there's a lot happening, not just in the U.S. but around the world too. Regarding, I think one of the charts, this chart right here, it mentions that I saw something else where it was other plants. 70,000 metric tons of nuclear waste is currently stored in 121 sites around the U.S.
Yeah, it's those nuclear plants that you know that are spread out all over the place,
Right.
like Catawba and some of the others.
There's 104 nuclear reactors in the U.S. I mean, people should know this, you know, have an idea of what's going on, you know, have an awareness of, you know, in the event that anything would happen, that people know locations to avoid. That makes sense.
Yeah, well, you know, because they did so much atomic testing out there, that probably wouldn't be a bad place to store your nuclear fuel. You know,
Yeah.
probably be pretty good, as opposed to any other place. You know, they're going to have one, because eventually, if they continue with nuclear, they're going to run out of space, and they're going to have to put it somewhere. Plus,
Right.
you have the problem with security. You know, security is pretty tight on all the nuclear plants, but you know, you could still get in there and do some damage if you wanted to. They added so many snipers and stuff lately that I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, they actually put sniper. I don't know what you call them, houses, buildings. You know, the towers, and all over on all the nuclear plants. And they have people that are sharpshooters, and they sit up there looking, see what they can see. And I wouldn't want them to think I was going to do something like that. That's
yeah, we had done some traveling and went to a few different locations, like gated communities, and we went by the Kennedy complex, and we didn't even go down the street, and we had security showing up out of nowhere and asking us what we were doing. We just pulled out of the side of the road. So we stopped at the road, and then in order to get down to the complex, we'd have to go down this other road. And we didn't even get that far when someone, drove right up next to us, a police officer, and asked us. So if they're that guarded, and then some of these other places are even more so, and you wonder if the sniper's even going to ask who you are, or they're just going to do what they were told to do, is protect the area. So I remember a bunch of people talking about going to Area 51, and I was like, well, it's owned by the military, and so if they see someone intruding, they will probably deal with it appropriately. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
Well, like the nuclear plants, as an employee, if I did something and security arrests me, and they do have the ability to arrest people, you end up going, the nuclear police come and get you, and they can take you off, and you may not ever be seen again. They put you in jail. You don't have to have a trial. You don't have to have a lawyer come assist you. There is nothing. You're taken away, and hopefully they'll turn you loose. But if they don't, you're just stuck. And just like Area 51, if they arrest you, take you into custody, they do not have to tell anybody. They're kind to the people outside the gate. They'll call the Tonopah police or sheriffs or whatever. They'll come get you. But you make it inside, and they arrest you, you can end up, in a prison, jail, and you would be very fortunate if they turned you loose after a week or two. They don't have to, and you have no rights. Nobody will ever know you're there. You can't talk to anybody. I would not mess with those guys, because they are military, or at least ex-military, and I don't know if they're contractors or what, but they're part of the government, and I'd be real hesitant about wanting to go do that. I'm interested in seeing what's inside facilities at Area 51, but there's other places besides Area 51 in Utah that I think they moved Area 51 to Area 52 or something. That's
yeah.
else. And
not only that, I recently had a situation where I was in Florida, and I thought I wanted to see Donald Trump's house, Mar-a-Lago. And we drove up there, and I got out of the car, and I had my camera, and I had plain view, this beautiful view of it. And a security guard came over to me, and I had videotaped, a few minutes, and he yelled at me. He didn't ask me. He yelled at me, told me to leave. And I could feel the tension. There was a lot of tension there. And so we didn't return back to that location. We kind of drove around just to videotape it and share it with the public. But like, my intentions weren't not to do anything bad, but just, hey, this is Trump's house, right? And then when I looked at my camera, the footage was gone. So like I couldn't figure that out. I mean, and, you know, logically it didn't make any sense. But I think that, you know, I mean, I know that he's connected with ETs, and there's some abilities there where, you know, he's protected. But I also felt like I didn't want to be associated with, because I had a feeling someone was going to be looking into his space, or you know, I didn't know exactly that it was going to be the FBI, but I knew that someone was watching him, and I didn't want to be associated with anyone nefarious going in there and doing anything, you know, prying in someone's property. So I left, but then there was another incident where I was near I believe it was a nuclear facility in Tennessee, and we stayed outside the parameters. We didn't do anything illegal. We didn't try to get in, you know, or do anything like that. I mean, I was all the way over in CERN. You know, I went to CERN, and we came right up to where the guards were. And I said, I'm not even going to talk to the guards. I don't want to be associated with possibly something happens and suddenly I'm a suspect, you know. So, but just out of curiosity, you know, I was in the area a few years ago. But this year we went to this place in Tennessee. So I got out of the car, and they have all the warning signs and everything, and I'm just with my camera, I'm looking, showing, you know, oh, this is a location. So here are the warning signs or whatever. And something, all of a sudden I heard a something trip, like a sound, right? And I felt something right on my forehead hit. And then the rest of the day I got really sick. I really didn't feel well. And I had a horrible headache. So I don't know what kind of technology that some of these places have, but I felt like someone hit me with a laser or something, you know, or there was a tripwire there that was an unseen tripwire of some sort. I couldn't figure out what it was. Do you have any idea of the type of technology that they would use for that?
No, I don't have any specific, but you know, I've heard that the military have those machines that work off the lasers that they can point it at people, and it makes them go, you know, get all anxious and excited, and they turn around and run. You know, I don't know what it does. If it's an infrasound or some type of sound that we can't hear, but it affects us, affects our bodies. I mean, they can do mass crowds, they can do individuals, they can point things at you, and you won't want to come up that way. I haven't ever experienced anything personally like that, but I guess the closest I've come to something like that is getting close to Bigfoot.
Which we're going to get to. We're going to get to 1 second, but I'm going to confirm that because when I was in Marrocco, I did feel anxious. Like when he said something to me, suddenly I had this level of anxiety, which I don't usually have. I'm usually like, all right, fine, you know, like I know I didn't break any laws, but there was something there, and I was almost like disoriented. And when we drove further to where it was like a downtown area, which was only you know, a couple of yards away, you know, really wasn't that far. And I got out, and I just was trying to like look around and saying, all right, why am I feeling this way? Why am I so startled by this? Like, so the technology would definitely make sense, because then once I kind of pulled myself back, and then we drove back over there just to show that we were there. But the other place, you can't, I could physically feel something hit my head, and then I physically got sick, like a horrible headache, and I don't usually get headaches. So I know that something like that happens, but yeah, it's very interesting, the things that you can stumble on. So, all right, so here's the next phase of our discussion. You live in the Carolinas. We're not going to say exactly where. and you are also a hunter. You're very comfortable using a gun. And I don't know how many years you've been using a gun. Maybe you started hunting when you were young and then went into the military afterwards.
Yeah. I started out, I had a BB gun when I was 4, and I went up from there. Living in the country, you're given a 22 to shoot squirrels and things with, and that the older you get, they give you a shotgun, and then when you get into high power stuff, you're at least a teenager. So that's the way I was raised. My family didn't have a problem with guns. We didn't have a problem taking them to school. We didn't take them to school.
No, it wasn't anything like that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you were responsible gun owners, which there are thousands and thousands of responsible gun owners who understand about hunting, and it's something that has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. People using weapons to hunt and to get food, and so and it was all very, very legal what you were doing. And so you take precautions when you go out there. You make sure there's no other hunters that could be in harm's way, and you understand the rules and guidelines. So you have this stretch of land that you can go in there, and you were able to go hunting. You've been going hunting, since you were young in that same region. Is that correct?
Well, not exactly. The place that I deer hunt, it belongs to my uncle, and he invited me in 2016 to come and hunt on his property. And I told him I hadn't done a whole lot of deer hunting. I've been a few times, but I don't know a lot about it. And he invited me to come down, and he told me everything that I needed to do, to go down there, what to wear, and how to act, going there, not shining a light up into the trees and things like that. And then if I saw any deer, don't spotlight them. Just going about my way, and keep the light pointed to the ground, and go to your deer stand, and don't climb with your gun in your arms and things like that. So that's the kind of thing. I've only been to his property one time, and that was the day before hunting season, and we went down and cut some trees back so that we have a good clear path to go to our stands. And, so that's pretty much all I've ever seen of this property. I knew the road, how to get down there to my stand, and that was it.
So tell me then what happened. So then you started seeing things in the woods.
Well, the day that I went to go hunting, first time down there, I walked. He told me where to park my truck, and I ended up walking about a half a mile from there to my tree stand. And so I was walking down the path, or the road rather. And when I say road, we're talking a country road, tractor roads. But anyway, it was a moonless morning. I could look up and I could see the entire Milky Way. It's real beautiful. I've never seen it before that night. And I could see without my flashlight somewhat. So I didn't turn my flashlight on. I was not wanting to shine it on anything. And I walked down, got where the road actually does a dogleg right, real hard 90-degree turn. And I turned that corner and something jumped up and started, well, let me back up just a little bit. I went over the crest of the road and of the hill there, and I saw a light in the distance. And I thought maybe it was a four-wheeler. Now I don't think it was a four-wheeler. I think it was a UFO. But that being said, I turned that corner. I had my flashlight on at that point because it was darker over there. And when I did, something jumped up and started sniffing real heavy. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's so deep, sniffing them. I was thinking maybe it was a big buck or something, an elk or something. And we don't have elk down this way. Even though one was seen a couple years ago in North Carolina. And
the Bigfoot?
no, an elk. It had, I guess, this area used to have elk all over, but
Okay.
Since then they've been hunted out and they're no more around as far as we know. But I thought that maybe that's what it was, and it took off running down the path. And
it's like that breath that they have, that like sound, like the horses do it and other animals. Yeah.
Yeah. And it took off running, and it sat there and it sniffed and snorted for a long time. I went ahead and walked on down to my deer stand. I mean, I wasn't afraid of it. I thought it was going to be a deer. I didn't know they didn't act that way. I had no perception of what they would do. But anyway, went and got into my deer stand, pulled my gun up, and sat there. And that thing huffed and puffed like that till the sun came up. And then I didn't hear anything else after that. And then from about 9 o'clock in the morning, sun was up. I could see really well, and a deer came out. I thought it was a doe, and I looked at it in my scope, and I said, "Wow, that's pretty deer." And he stuck around, and I thought, well, this is the first day, and I would like to go home with a deer. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a shot. I've got a doe tag. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. And I shot it, and it jumped up and moved around a little bit and took off towards the woods. And I waited until about 9:30, and I climbed down, went down there, and where I shot him, I was looking and trying to find a blood trail, and I didn't see a blood trail. I ended up gut shooting it, and it didn't bleed till it died. But it didn't go real far, fortunately, but I didn't know that at the time. But I started walking towards the direction that it had taken off in, which was towards the creek. There was a creek that run down the length of the back of my uncle's property. And I walked down towards the creek, and I got to a little cedar tree that had been knocked over, and it had dried out, and I was going to step over it, but I ended up stepping on it. When I did, it broke and just went pow. And I don't know if you've ever heard a cedar tree or a limb break or try to break one, and when they break, they pop.
Right.
So when I did that, something started coming down the hill in the direction that thing was huffing and puffing at me, tearing up, knocking down trees and limbs and leaves flying everywhere. And so I didn't know what it was, but I didn't want it to see me. So I kind of knelt down and brought my gun up so I could see, and then I was going to shoot it if it was a big buck or an elk. You know, I was going to take care of it. And it got right across from me, and it's probably 20, 30 yards, 25 yards, something like that. On the other side of that creek, which is not a big creek, it's a sandy river, but it was small, real small right there. But anyway, this thing stopped right in front of me as it came out of the bushes, and stopped and looked at me. And I said, "What is that, a gorilla?" And I had no idea. I'd never seen anything like this before. And then I realized that, you know, it just looked at me, and then I think it zapped me at that point. You know, I'd heard since then that the Indians said that Bigfoot would steal your soul. You know, I didn't know what that meant. And other people talk about how they could zap you and make you forget everything.
Right.
Well,
sure.
I think that's what it did to me. But something inside my head said, "Don't shoot me." And I said out loud, "I'm not going to shoot you." But I got a good view, a picture of what he looked like, and he was gray, kind of silver. And I thought, you know, whatever this is very old. But then when I looked at his face, I didn't see anything but a young person. It looked like a human face. His nose was kind of, it was hooded and was kind of, you know, pushed in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I got the, not a direct front view, but more of a side view. And he was looking to his left at me. So I got a good look at his face. His hair was long and silver, and it come down over his shoulders like this, but he had no hair on his face, none at all. And his, you know, I told you what his nose looked like, and his eyes were real dark, kind of like a dog's brown eyes would be, kind of black. And he lacked a hair on his face, and he looked like he had Down syndrome. You know how those people with Down syndrome look a certain way? I thought that's what he was. That he had that problem. But I think it was just, you know, how he was, his face. I don't think he had Down syndrome. But
no, you were trying to identify and piece together in your mind what exactly you were looking at, and in the process, it's not adding up because he had different attributes that were humanoid, but yet not human. His eyes didn't quite look right to you, but maybe it was normal for them. And then the hair, the long silver hair on his body.
Yeah.
You said, yeah.
Yeah.
Where did it attach? Like, did it go around and then connect here? What was it?
He had a high forehead, and it came like that and just went down over his shoulder, you know, down about halfway down his forearm, or not forearm, but biceps, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it came down pretty long, but it was like that all over. His hair looked like that all the way down, but you could see where it stopped from his head right here. I couldn't see his ears. I couldn't see his neck at all. All I saw was his head and his shoulders, his arms. His upper body was huge, and his arms were long, and it looked like maybe he was standing on all fours instead of standing upright. He wasn't.
So how tall was he on all fours?
How what?
How tall was he just even on all fours when he was you know, not standing up, but he was down. So, like, were you looking straight into his eyes, or were you looking up at him, even though he was on all fours?
I was looking at him at a slight angle to his left, my right.
And he was higher than you or lower than you, or?
Well, it was at the same level that I was, but I could, if I was to say he was, how tall he was, it's probably about 4 feet, 5. Well, what, I don't think it was 5 feet, but it was 4.5 feet tall there.
So if he stood up, he might have been like 8 feet or 7 or 8 feet.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and how big was his shoulders and
Massive.
torso? Like, can you measure, like, say how many feet possibly?
3 feet. I'd say it was about 3 feet wide. The shoulders.
3.5 feet maybe, like going across.
That's possible. I wasn't really thinking a whole lot about that. I saw his muscles in his arms and his chest, and his head was about normal for that size as far as how big it was. But he was huge. He had a lot of muscles, and I'd say he's probably at least 3 feet wide, and stood. From him standing on all fours, he wasn't really on his knees. He was on his feet, but I couldn't see him. He didn't come out that far, but right before he came out of the edge of the foliage and stuff that was around him, I saw these twinkles, and I couldn't see him as he came down the hill. All I saw was just something rustling around. Well, when he got there, that's when I saw him. It's like he had come out of I don't know if it was a portal or he was just invisible or what, but he was solid when I saw him. But I know that there's something going on around that area. I can't explain it. Like stars, it's kind of blurry, but then there he was. But anyway, after that little conversation that he gave me about the shooting him, and I told him I wasn't going to shoot him. I don't just shoot anything that I see. So, I put my gun down a little bit, and he turned around where he came, and he was gone. I mean, when I say gone, he went back up the hill the same way he came, totally invisible. I couldn't see him at all, and he could have been just below the tops of the trees, but there's nothing. There's foliage there, trees, little saplings and things like that, but I should have been able to see whatever it was coming down through there.
Right. Right. So it didn't make any sense how he just kind of left, but he made a point to let you see him.
He did. I think, personally, I think he thought I was one of his family members or something, and that he was coming down there to distract me so they could get away. Like I was going down into their territory. Yeah. And that's what I thought after the fact. I didn't know why all this happened, but because he did come down and he did look at me and he did let me see him, I thought that's what it might be now. I think that he was trying to distract me and let his family get away. And I think they have little tricks that they do like that. But anyway, he took off back up the hill, and then I didn't hear or see of him again. um, that day anyway.
Yeah. So that's a very profound encounter. And usually it seems to be consistent with what other people say, is that they don't want to get hurt. They don't want to hurt anyone. They want to make a connection and somehow communicate, or in some way let themselves be known. If they don't want to be known or seen, I think that they hide themselves, and they can, because they can phase shift, they can cloak. However that they do it, I think naturally they can do it. Some people feel like they're early man. I feel like they were a different race completely, and ET under the category of an ET, from my interaction with them.
Yeah, that's what I think now too. I keep up with people like Scott Carpenter, and that's kind of like what he believes too, if I'm not mistaken. Other people that I've seen on TV, like Colorado Bigfoot, that's where I got a lot of the signs that I know that they're there. They're still there. They didn't go anywhere. But I can watch other people and learn from them.
You mean that, like the sounds that they make, like the hitting the trees and the knocking? Yeah.
Well, I went on down and found my deer. He was about 20 yards down the creek, on my side, thank goodness. I didn't have to carry him across the water or anything. But where I saw the Bigfoot, he was on somebody else's property right there. The creek is pretty much the back side of my uncle's property. Pretty much. He has some on the other side of the creek, but not much. And he gave me strict rules that I don't cross that creek. And it wasn't because of Bigfoot, but it was because that was not his property. You don't go walking across somebody else's property. Don't care if you're hunting or not.
Right.
So I didn't go over there. And then I didn't think to go look for tracks. I didn't think to look for broken twigs or anything like that.
You weren't looking for them at all. You were hunting deer.
I thought there was one Bigfoot at the time, and he traveled across the country, like a nomad would, and people see him at different places at different times. That's what I thought. I thought there was just one of them, and I couldn't believe that I had seen one. And he was not like a Bigfoot that you would normally see, a gray or silver looking. I hadn't even heard of that.
Yeah, even the Yetis are more white.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other ones are more brown looking, brownish fur. How thick was the fur on the body? Was it like
It was like your hair. It was
like wavy.
It was hair. It wasn't fur. He had hair all over his body.
It was wavy like my hair?
Yep. And that's about the length of his hair. It was as long as yours is.
Maybe it was me. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, it was still gray.
No, I'm not a Bigfoot, but maybe they liked me. That's why.
Imitation.
Sure. Like-minded, right? Hey, we get the same look. So you also said that you had some other encounters with Bigfoot there. That was another visit to the woods at your uncle's house, or?
Yeah, the next day, I did the same thing. Got up early, went down, no moon, stars in the sky. I went down and I made that big turn, and Nothing's there. And I'd keep walking with my flashlight on the ground, find my spot, and head down that little path and get up in my tree stand. And I sit there. I had set my gun down up there, and I set my flashlight. I had a big flashlight this time. The first time I had a little small one. This time I had one that I could zoom in and out, one of my good ones. And I set it down in the stand, which the stand it's like a tree house more than a stand. There was chairs up there and a box, so I could see out on three sides. But there were big trees that it was built in. Were big. It was a big something tree. I don't know what kind it was, but it had three, the stems, how
Branches, like some.
together at the base.
Yeah. Yep.
That's where it was. It was built in there, in between all that. And anyway, I was sitting there in the dark, just listening, and I could hear something walking up beside me, kind of hiding behind a tree and kind of sniffing at me, trying to do it real light, but I could hear it, like that. And then I heard it back on off, leaves in the south are, at hunting season is kind of crunchy sometimes. Well, he did that about 3 times. About every 5 minutes, he'd come back up, check, and make sure I was still there, I guess. Well, it got to be close to the time the sun comes up, starts to crack, and it started to get a little light. So it was still dark. And then I heard up in front of me about 12 o'clock, I heard a wood knock. Something hit a tree, and it, how it sounds. And then a couple seconds after that one, I heard one about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and it heard it again, another wood knock. And then at about 4 o'clock, heard one. And then when it got to down here to where this guy was, I heard something just grab a big old limb and pop it, just pop real loud. And then I heard that one walk down the other side of the creek from where I was, which was behind me, from my right to my left is the way that the creek goes. And I heard him walking down that path over there, like where I saw the Bigfoot the day before, down that way. Then after a couple seconds, I heard another one do the same thing. Then another one. And then another one. It was like 4 in total that I heard. But the last one that come by, it got right behind me, and I heard a rustle, kind of like
with the leaves and everything. Yeah.
It was kind of like I don't know, somebody trying to do something. And then I heard this little kid go, hoo, hoo, hoo. And I said, what the heck? And I went looking for my flashlight. I was shining around there because that's a little kid. Bigfoot? There's no way. And so this was a family unit that's down there. I only saw one of them, but I've heard the whole family. And they evidently, when I told him the day before that I wasn't going to shoot him, they felt more comfortable with me coming down there and hunting. So, I mean, that's what I believe. And I had that on my mind the whole day. I couldn't even stay down there all day. I was so excited to go tell somebody that there's a whole family of these things down there. Well, I didn't have a trail cam at the time. I put a trail cam up after deer season down where I shot that first one. I got that whole area where I shot him to look at. He came out of somewhere. I want to know what's coming up there. And I've seen a lot of interesting things with that camera. But the third day, I went hunting at the same spot. All morning long, I heard something clacking rocks together like that. All day, all morning. And I got down, I had my gun, I was going to cross the creek, and I was going to see if I could see what was making this noise. I mean, you hear squirrels and things all the time, birds. I got to find out what's making these rock clicks like that. Well, I got to the edge of the water and something growled at me, and it was a deep, guttural growl. And then I looked and I realized I had my gun out like I was going to shoot something. I said, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." So I put my gun over my shoulder, slung with the sling, and I backed out. I was not going to have a run-in with a mama Bigfoot with her baby over there making noises. Like I figured that's what it was. Might not have been. Might have been whatever growled at me. I don't know. Never did see anything, but that was interesting. And then shortly after that, I don't think I went and did a lot more hunting down there, and not because I was afraid, but because something came up. I have a lot of health issues, and I think I had a cardiac rehab that my doctor wanted me to go through, so I couldn't. It interfered with my hunting. Didn't get to go back down there. But at the first of the year, that's when I went and put my trail cam up, on that tree, looking at that area. And that's when the interesting things come. That's where we get into those pictures.
Those pictures, yeah. So you had, do you continue to kind of have that trail cam there? Is it still out there now?
No, I turned all that stuff over to my uncle, and he started moving things around. He's got cameras out there in different spots. But yeah, at that time, I was cutting his grass down there, keeping the fields clear and the roadways clear, so you can drive down through there without getting the sticks and things growing up, trees growing up and getting the trucks. Of course, everybody in the South's got a truck, So
yeah.
So I did that. I know he put one up there where he's got some fruit trees, looking over in a certain area, and he mainly had that there to see if they came down, he would catch them, on the camera, and he'd know what was going on. But the one I had down at this shooting lane, it stayed there for almost a year, when I put it up. And that's when after a while he took it over, and I didn't even get to look at any of the pictures. But the ones that we have, mine.
Yeah. What I'm going to do is, so we're going to do a shared screen, and we're going to get that information up. See if I have those pictures up. Okay. Going to enlarge that. Well, why don't we do the shared screen? Okay, so here's one of the pictures that we were looking at. And there's a little squirrel in the forefront. Here's a cage. And back in here, was it in this area right here?
Yeah, that's it.
You see a face.
Yep.
And that's
the little girl.
was like a female.
Yep.
And it sort of looks like a human face there. Yeah.
I think that's a young female Bigfoot. I mean, I think that was the kid that may have made that noise.
So do that noise again.
Well, it was a hoo hoo hoo.
Kind of like
that.
yeah.
It's like it was a monkey sound, but they're not monkeys.
No, they're not.
But go ahead.
It almost looks like some kind of apparition right here. It's trying to move. And it's moving very quickly from this direction. But if something is phase shifting or trying to get out from, you seeing them, so if that was where it was at in this area and then taking off here, and then the filtering of the light going through the particles would create this effect. So it's not quite dense. It doesn't have full density in locked into this dimension, but then shifts out. So you see it becomes like particles and moves very quickly. So whether that was a Bigfoot or an apparition, but since we're dealing with Bigfoot, you're seeing pictures in this area. So what's your thoughts on this?
Well, that's taken from my uncle's trail cam. He has it on a pine tree, looking at his road and his fruit trees in the background. And so if somebody drives through this area, he'll get them on camera. Well, this thing showed up one day. Like I said, it's a trail cam, so nobody took it. It's an automatic picture. Something was there that caused it to go off, and this is what we got. It's really, really strange. I have no idea what it is.
Because it goes right into the woods. It's not like if it was a vehicle and maybe there was an anomaly with the camera or whatever, then you would see the movement going down the road.
Yeah.
But it would be hard for a vehicle to go down here without having problems.
No, there was no vehicle there.
Yeah. So this is either it's an apparition or this is one of the Bigfoots phase shifting out. Okay, so we're looking in this region right here where there's actually a face up in here that you can see. And this is...
Yeah, if you look from where you have your cursor to the left, beyond the red line that I had put in there, and at the same level, yeah, right there. It looks like it's like some type of
arm or...
No, it's a screen. It looks like maybe it's 3 feet wide. You know, it runs. Can you see my mouse?
Down over around here?
Yeah, right up through there.
Yeah, I'm doing this shared screen, so it's hard for you to show me.
Yeah. Well,
but right there?
Yeah, right there. That's one edge of it, and it goes all the way over to the right on the same level. Inside the red square right there.
Yep.
That it looks like a screen.
Right. Screen. I see what you're saying. Yeah. It's unusual looking.
Yeah. Like it's hiding behind that.
Yep.
But if you didn't know that there was something there, you could overlook that as just being the shadows and the light. But I think it's actually hiding behind that, because I don't think there's anything there when there's nothing around. It's further stuff back.
The way it's cut out right here, I mean, it's almost reminds me of those they look like a blanket, but it's a camouflage, like
Yeah.
like you know how they have those uniforms that are camouflage.
Yep.
But I've also seen they look like a blanket. It's like as if they was holding it up or something, so he could look and see who you were, but had his face showing here.
Yep.
So you can see it's like a blanket almost, or yeah.
The distance from the camera to that is about almost 20 yards. I say 20 yards. It may not be, but about 15. But it's not real far, because the camera's just been in the same spot the whole time, and the other pictures you've seen of this area, they're all the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's something there. I just don't know.
Yeah, this right here obviously looks like some kind of shape, and you can see it, and it's like crisscrossed.
And then
see that
looking over the top there.
Yeah, you can see there's almost like a pattern there that's you don't see anywhere else.
Yeah. This one I had been playing with, trying to take out all the colors so I could see into the woods. And inside that red square is that little girl we were looking at that other picture with the squirrel and the little cage. It was in the edge of the woods. That little girl is right there, and she looks like a little Klingon. But when you can get it, look at it in a real high definition, she's got has a mole or hair on her face, but it's just real small. Her hairline gives her a real high forehead, where her hair starts. It comes over her ears, and she's looking off to the right. I mean, I'm sorry, left of the picture. It's something.
Yep, right over here, like that.
Yeah, right. Well, in her right arm, right in front of her face there, it looks like a white baby with some kind of skull cap on. See, where I reference it is this weed that comes up here. There's a leaf that comes off to the left right there, and she's right below that right there. Your cursor is over, well, back to the right a little. Come back to the right there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's her head. And when I looked at it and I said, there's something there. And that's when I went looking, trying to pull the green out of it so I could see what it was. And, but you can see it. It's just not it's darker there. And I looked at it on a real high resolution monitor with a real good graphics card. And that she popped right out of the picture right there. I could see her the hair on her arm come down on be her left shoulder is closest to us, but it runs across, and there's something kind of blocking her arm all the way. But there's a rabbit right there where you got your cursor. You can see it's white. One of those little dots is its white nose. It's like a multicolored rabbit.
Right here?
No.
Down here. Down over here.
I lost it. If you can imagine or at least see her face looking that way to the left.
Yeah, yeah. I can see it right here, and that's her head right here.
Yeah.
Right, and she has a high forehead.
Right. And in her arm, her left arm, think of it cradling, you know, where you got a 90-degree in your elbow.
Yeah, yeah.
With that thing where it would normally be on her with her head there.
Right here, like right in here. Or was it right here?
Right
This
there.
arm.
Right there.
Yeah.
There is I don't know if it's alive or dead or a teddy bear or what, but there's something there. I think it's a rabbit because
yeah, it's probably a rabbit.
Right there where
you can see it right here, the face right there. Is that it right there, the rabbit's face?
No, I think it's down.
Down further?
Yeah. Because she's a Bigfoot, she got longer arms. But it's down near the bottom red line.
Okay.
Maybe quarter of an inch, right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is really interesting. And I always believed that they exist, and I'm just going to share with you. We're going to go back now that we've looked at these pictures and go back to our regular screen again. And I just, years ago, I think it was around 2016, 2017, I was doing shows with Max Steele, which you've never heard of Max Steele. He lived in the Carolinas. And he used to tell me that in his backyard, which were filled with woods, that he would hear Bigfoot all the time, that they would actually come by his house. And he would hear them knocking and doing all sorts of stuff, but he was also very psychic, so he could communicate with them. And they actually took him, and he went for a little he traveled with them somehow. He said they brought him down some tunnels and in some place, and then they brought him back. And he said they were always very, very nice to him. And he said that at one time that they were, he could tell that they were distressed. He would call me, and we would try to communicate with them to see what they were upset about. And there was one time, one of them, I know that's, I don't know anyone that would believe this, but one of them actually used a telephone to call him. And they, they had that voice like they have, that kind of like yell, or like in Star Wars, that was it the Wookiee or whatever he's called? It's kind of that. And I heard it, and I said, "There's no human makes a voice like that. We just don't have the correct kind of voice box to do that." And he, it was weird. It was, and anytime we had an encounter with them, communication from them, it was always like something odd was happening. It's almost like time was getting affected, or there's something more to them that was, if they were just like early man, I don't think that would happen. Or if they were like a break off society from humanity, I literally think that they have some other types of attributes, ET connected. I've seen them with spaceships, usually saucer ships, and I don't think they abduct people. But Peter, also recently talked about them and said that he was in Alaska, and there was one that just showed up recently and became a bit of a territorial issue. between the ones that were already there and then the new one. And he says they're very territorial amongst, with each other. And then he was concerned, as the ACIO was concerned, that they were getting a little bit too close to the human population, or the human population expanding, and that humans were going to be interacting with them, and they were trying to keep the separation, maybe because they were trying to protect them, because they're not, likely to harm us, but humans maybe out of fear might shoot them.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. James Rink interviewed a lady. I can't remember the name, but her husband was in prison for life for being involved in some kind of murder scheme.
Mm-hmm.
He has a spaceship and other things, according to her. But anyway, she said that there's Bigfoot that guard the entrance, the secret entrance to Dulce Dome, or whatever they call it, the base.
Yep,
there
Area 51.
What's that?
In Area 51.
Well, this is in New Mexico.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because Max Steele also worked in Area 51.
Okay.
And he's no longer with us. I mean, he was a very interesting individual. But yeah, he worked in Area 51, and he talked about how that a group of ETs picked him up one time on a ship. Yeah. So I mean, I think they're in different areas, and there's different ones, and some of them, they say some of them smell like skunks, like the skunk creature or whatever they have as a name or a reference to them.
Skunk ape.
Skunk ape. It's like they smell like wet dog, or yeah, I've heard different descriptions.
Yeah, they. I didn't mention it, but that first time when that thing sniffed at me, when I turned the curve, when I walked down through there where he was, I smelled a real musky, like it had peed or something in that area. It wasn't really a skunk smell, but it was a real musky.
Like an animal,
A wet.
marking their territory. Yeah.
Exactly. But it didn't smell like a skunk, and most people around here where I live know what a skunk smells like, because we smell them on the road all the time. It hadn't been run over, and some people actually have them come up in their yards, and they get skunked, as we call it. So they know what it smells like.
Yeah, I mean, I live near the woods. There's the skunks around me too.
Yeah.
So it is a distinctive smell, and I think when they were calling them skunk apes, it's not so much that they smelled exactly like a skunk, but that they smelled. Right. I think that was referencing something that when you're in the woods and you smell something that's a little out of the ordinary, a kind of a wet, musky smell or whatever. Yeah, that there's very likely that's what it is.
Yeah.
And you don't have any bears around your area, do you?
No, there's no bears. And there's no hunting season for bears either in South Carolina.
Any other type of animals that it could have been confused with? So there's nothing else, right? Because either you have deer.
We have deer, and we have
wild cats.
What's that?
Wild cats. Any wild cats?
Yeah, we have cats. Up towards the North Carolina mountains, there are cougars and things like that. We have bobcats, and some people have seen black panthers I have another uncle, a different uncle that has seen Black Panther. He took a picture of it, and I don't have access to that. I probably could get it, but it wouldn't be instant and take a couple weeks and things like that to get it. But we definitely, I saw him with my own eyes while I was hunting a bobcat. So they're abundant around, but that wasn't what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen bobcats before. Yeah.
The sounds from bobcats are really spooky, but you can tell that's what they are. Well, I take that back. You think that's what they are, because Bigfoots have a tendency to mock different sounds in the woods that they're around. Like they can make deer sounds, they can make bobcat sounds and owls and crows and other sounds. So you just never know unless you listen to them real good. Because I was turkey hunting 1 year. It's probably been about 4 years ago. Might have been that same year, 2017. But I was making a turkey sound, a hen clucking on my slate. And I stopped and I heard down below me in the woods another hen making that same clucking sound. But it never came out. It never came to the field. Never came out into the field.
That would usually call them in. That sound would call them in. Well, so it was something sounding like it, but it wasn't.
Right. But see, hens don't necessarily come when you click or pluck with the slates. That brings the gobblers in. They're wanting to have sex with them, so they
so like a mating call almost.
Go up there. But but that's what that's all about. But this one, if it was a real one, it never moved. It just started making sounds and never made any more sounds around me. Just down there mocking my slate, and then stopped. So after I got through hunting, I walked down there, and sure enough, there was sticks piled up like a blind that a Bigfoot would, could hide in. And he was probably sitting there mocking me, making the sounds with my noise makers and stuff. So that's what I believe, and I wouldn't have thought that they would, he would have been down there like that.
Yeah, I thought it was also funny how you said that they knocked like in a clockwise position around your area, which was probably meant something. It was type of a communication with you.
Yeah, I think it was, is it safe to move? They relay it down to the one that's in charge. And when he broke that thing, it meant that, yep, come on. But it was, I thought it was neat.
Well, I think we're maybe it's maybe your dog friend over there is telling you it's time to go for a walk. So I want to say thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, so if they have any questions for you, they can post it in the comments, and you can respond to the comments.
Okay.
All right.
Be glad to.
And appreciate you taking your time, and I appreciate the service of what you've done in the military for the U.S. and for the people, and appreciate your work. So thanks for sharing, and thanks for wearing the T-shirt too.
Oh, yeah. That's from Roswell.
Yeah, I saw that.
Fest in Roswell. Every 4th of July, they have a alien fest there. It was neat. Had the opportunity to go in 2019, I think. Yeah, 2019. Got that picture up.
We have an alien fest over in New Hampshire. That's also called it's Exeter UFO. Exeter, New Hampshire. Yeah.
That's neat.
So I got my glasses. See.
Oh yeah. See? Look at that. That's neat.
Yep. Well, thank you again, and have a nice walk with your dog, and you take care. We'll have comments below. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We appreciate you being here. Have a good day.
You have been listening to Andronetalks Radio. Join us on YouTube channel Jessica Arael Morocco and visit her website at www.readingsbyarael.com.